Good morning, Tony Messenger.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly. How you doing?
Tony.
So your article in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, stltoday.com, about bullying, you allude to the fact that you got caught up in some online social media fray, and you had to apologize or delete your response. What's going on here?
Well, it's sort of a complicated story, but I was referencing the Billy Busch legal situation involving a kid, a sixth grader at Chaminade, and as my colleagues in the Riverfront Times have reported, he's been charged with assault related to that. And the point I was making is that it's easy to get caught up in his celebrity and the fact that he's had multiple incidents like this in his lifetime, mostly when he was a younger man. But the fact is, in today's society, we have lots of instances of just everyday bullying, and I talked about a couple of examples in my own life, and where I got caught up in not making the right decisions recently. So I got an email response to one of my columns on Governor Greitens, and I get email responses all the time, every day, many of which are nasty, some of which are just critical. And I posted it online, and it was really offensive, and it was not the kind of thing I should have been sharing on social media. And I was trying to be funny. I didn't put the person's name or anything like that. But it was an example of how little things like that are things that we as adults do every day that send the wrong example to our kids. And so if we want our sixth graders to learn how to behave on social media, to learn how to behave at basketball practice, on the playground, when they're coming into their own and dealing with hormones and dealing with their own bullying and their own space issues, we need to do a little bit better job as adults of sometimes learning from our own mistakes. It was an example where I just took social media one step too far, where stepping away and saying nothing would have been better than trying to raise the temperature in the discussion. And I think that's a real problem we have in society right now. And it starts in the White House and goes all the way down.
I can only imagine what your mail looks like, your emails, your whatever else, right? Your sort of reaction, your social media reaction to some of your columns. Because I know what mine is, and I'm sure yours is 10 times worse. But we have lost decency in this world, right? There's no decency anymore. There's no shame anymore. People say things they would never, ever would say in public, and it is perfectly acceptable for them to say the most vile things to somebody who they disagree with on social media.
And it doesn't matter what it is. And the point of my column is that, sometimes we can just say, oh, it's social media. People don't, oh, it's just the comments on the newspaper page. People are just saying things. Oh, it's just Twitter. Oh, it's just Instagram. But it's not. The point of my column was that attitude drags over into real life. It's funny. I will get nasty calls or nasty emails, and I will respond kindly, sometimes just saying thank you for reading, sometimes responding if somebody is being nasty to me but actually has something to say about the column, I will often, respond. And frequently the response I get is, oh, I didn't expect you to respond. Oh, I didn't know a real person would answer the phone. Oh, I went back and read my email. I'm sorry, I was kind of a jerk. It's as though they live in a world where it's okay to say really stupid, mean things, but when you all of a sudden realize there's a person on the other side, you recognize your own failing. It's like, oh, wait, I thought I was just commenting in some anonymous chat room somewhere. I'm sorry, I was really a jerk. You're a real person. I still hate your column, but I shouldn't be a jerk about it. And it's just fascinating. So, yesterday I got a bunch of responses from people who are apparently friends and colleagues of Billy Busch who thought I was unfair to him. And most of them reasonable. They defended their friend and suggested that I treated him unfairly, and I responded appropriately to most of those folks. That's a reasonable discussion. People can disagree over particularly what I do for a living all the time. I've got no problem with that. It's when we take this stuff to the level of bullying and to the level of, I disagree with you, therefore I hate you.
Yeah.
Therefore you're a horrible human being. You voted for Trump, so I can never speak to you again. You're a liberal Democrat, so therefore you're a bad person. It's this kind of thing that it starts in our political world and it trickles down to our kids, and that's what I worry about with our next generation. Is there's been a lot of talk that millennials are gonna take us through. They're the generation that they don't worry about politics in the same way that we do. They don't worry about race in the same way that older generations have. They don't worry about gay marriage in the way that older generations have. They're going to lead us through. But what I worry about is the next generation, the generation of my youngest children. My oldest kids are millennials. What about my youngest children who are now being influenced by what's happening real time today in the political and social media world, where all of a sudden we have open racism again, and we have open intimidation and bullying? What's going to happen to that next generation? That's what I worry about, and it's our job as adults to try to find a way to turn that around.
Everyone can certainly remember Tom Schweik and that whole thing, right? I mean, in essence,
Yep.
he was bullied to death. Now, there are other things going on, obviously, but in a sense, you could argue he was bullied to death.
You could, and the funny, I go back to Senator Jack Danforth's eulogy. Words matter.
Right.
That was something that he said, and in some way, shape, or form, he said that over and over again. Words matter, and I think about that often because I'm in a business where sometimes I am not as careful as I should be with my words, either on the radio or in print or whatever. And you think about that, and the point is, in a civilized society, when you make that mistake and you go too far, then you step back and you say, hey, I went a little bit too far here. I got called on it. I made a mistake. That was one of the points I was trying to make in the column. I'm trying to teach my 7th grader and my 5th grader that when you get in those circumstances, you're going to make mistakes. It's how you deal with the mistake. It's how you deal with that conflict and talk yourself down from it, and not just create a situation where every time you have a conflict, you can't ever talk to that person again.
Right.
You're immediately cut off from that social group or whatever. That's not how a civilized society is supposed to work.
Tony Messenger, have yourself a good weekend. Happy opening day, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Good to talk to you.